So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in click events. So with JavaScript and jQuery, you might be familiar with when you click on something, you can have the code do something different, right? So if I click on this, I could prevent it from going there, and I can alert something instead. You might notice the images are a little different. I did change them to different images so they all fit and fill really well. And then in my styles, I actually changed that as well. I just did that off camera just so it actually looks a little bit nicer than what it did. So now that I've got that, it does flow a little bit better. Again, this is about image sizes being right. That's it. So since we're doing click events, I'm going to come in on a class. So in here, I'm going to say click, or parentheses click, and then I'll just say some, well, let's just say prevent normal. I'm going to call it prevent normal, and I'm going to pass in $event. Okay, so this is of course, this is a method or a function that I need to add to my actual component. So inside of here, I can just do prevent normal, and it's going to be event, and we'll call it an HTML element. Actually, before we do that, we'll just call it any, and then I'll just do console log event, and then I'll do event dot prevent default, and then I'll do alert working. We'll save that, and then I want to actually add that on each one, so I'll put it on each actual image so we don't have to think about that really. Click event, and finally click event. Okay, so we save it, and it's loading, and it looks like we have an error. So a tag, unexpected closing a tag. It looks like I might have missed something here, and that's a single quote at the end of these two to actually close this portion off. Save that, refresh, there it goes. I click on that, and boom, it's working, right? And the reason I changed the event to any, I can now see what the event actually is, and it's a mouse event, right? So I go back to it, and I put it into the component. I can actually call this a mouse event, and everything's still working just fine. So I let it refresh, click on it, and again, it's still a mouse event, and it's working. So this prevent default means that I can do all sorts of stuff with this. Like, I mean, I'm not going to really go into all the things you could do with a mouse event, but the purpose of this is to prevent what would normally happen, right? And that's what that's doing. It's preventing it from clicking the actual link, right? So how do I actually get the link that it was clicking? So maybe I do something in between the prevent normal and what's actually going on. Well, what I can do is I can actually add in basically turn this into a model, and I'll put a $sign here, and I'll say image one, and I'm going to, or excuse me, a hashtag, not a $sign. Image one, I'm also going to pass that into my click event, and then I'll do the same thing on my other ones. So image two, and pass that in. And then finally, image three, and pass that one in. Okay, so back into my component, I now have the image, and then I'll also put it as any, and I'll console log that this time. I'll get rid of that alert because we don't really need that. So I'll alert it, and now if I click on it, it says, take a look. It gives me the actual a tag that's in there. So if I did console log image attribute, and we say href, right? So the href, I click on that, and doesn't seem like it wants to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and prevent the default. Try that again, and it says image.attribute is not a function. It kind of seemed like it could have been, but it's not. So it's actually giving us that actual field itself. So what this is actually a native element, right? So if I refresh and I see that, let's make sure we got it saved. This is a native element. So I can say native element, but that's actually not a class. So we'll just leave it as any, and I'll do get attribute and href. Save that. Click on it. There it goes. Go back, and what we can do now is we can actually make this like, let's say for instance we're going to prevent the normal action from happening, then we're going to change the actual link it's going to, and then we're actually going to allow the next click event to go to that actually happening. So I'm going to say prevented in here, and we're going to say equals to false. Okay, so we'll say if prevented, rather if not this dot prevented, so that's the opposite. Then we're going to prevent the default. I'll get the attribute, and then all I'm going to do here is I'll set the attribute href, and I'm going to set it to videos. Okay, and then I'll just say this dot prevented equals to true. Save that. Refresh in here. Click on it again, and it takes me to videos. So that's just probably not a very practical thing, but it's something to note that you can absolutely set all sorts of things here. Now, what if I did image.prevented equals to true, and instead of that, I'll just say if image.prevented, so if not image.prevented, then we'll go through and do all those things. So let's try it again. Click on this. Does it, right? And it also does it if I do it on that one, do it on that one, do it on that one, go back to the beginning and do it, right? So this other method didn't allow me to do that. So what it's basically saying, this is not defined. So that means that it's not that. That means it can go through and do all of these different things. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this and get rid of some of these alerts and stuff like that. Granted, in the long run, I'm probably not going to do something like this, but it is important to note that I can actually add stuff to any one of these modules or the model itself, right? So I can actually add stuff, and that's what I did. I added whether or not it's prevented. So I will take this one step further, is I want to actually update how these are being rendered. I'm going to go back into my home page, and I'm going to say home image list equals to, and I'm going to actually get those things. So going back into that component, I'm going to go ahead and grab the source for each image, right? So I'll go ahead and copy that and back into my component here. I'm going to make new objects, so I'll say image, and it's going to be equal to this. And then we'll say title, and I'll just say image 4, actually. And then I could add description, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just remove that. And then I'll just say link, and we'll say video slash video 1. I think that's a link. Put a slash at the beginning too. Okay, so we'll tab this back. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it through a few times, put a comma at the end. Okay, so we've got 4, 5, 6, and I think I have 1. So I have a few of them in there. So again, changing these 4, 5, 6, and 1. And all the links are the same. Now that I've got this, let's go back into my component here. And we're going to come in here, and with the slide, I'm going to do ng4, and it's going to be let image of image list, right? So inside of the slide, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste it in here, delete the, or well, I guess I didn't need to copy it, but I'm going to come in here, change that to that, this to just the image. Oh, I can get rid of this. This to the image. Notice I got rid of that model. And the source, instead of being src, it's going to be like this. Image dot, we might have called it image as well. So image dot image. Yep. So we'll just keep that there. Well, let's call this image obj, just so we don't get those too confused there. And then right here, image obj dot title. And again, I said I was going to get rid of these, so I will. Of course, you can change them how you'd like. And in the href, I'll just put link. There we go. Okay, and let's go ahead and get rid of the rest of this stuff. So I'm going to get rid of this slide here. And I'll just comment out these other slides for a moment. So we'll save that. Refresh on our home page. Let's go back to our home page. And I should have 4 images, and I do. Right? Of course, one of them is not the right size, but it is at least showing me that I have these 4 images. If I click on them, again, it should do what it did with the other one. Let's go back. And it's actually just preventing it completely. And let's go ahead and look at why. Console log set image set attribute is not a function because it's now going off of this, right? It's not actually going off of the attribute itself. So it's going off of the object itself. So now instead of set attribute, I can grab anything from these objects and I'll say image.link equals to, and we'll change that to videos. Save that. Refresh. I click on it, and now it actually does it. So these are actual objects, right? So that means the objects I can actually change. I didn't actually get the attribute from the item, right? So I'm not actually getting that A class anymore, or the A tag anymore. I'm just getting the actual object that's coming through, and I can work off of that object. So there's another way to kind of do this. This is probably the way you would end up doing it, something like this. Not that you would necessarily do this actual function. You're not going to probably change the link, but you could register a click event here, so it could go somewhere. And then the next thing that we haven't done, which is actually running the link. So instead of just preventing it, because we don't really need to do that, I could just take off the prevent default, run some click event, and then have it go. So that's what we'll do now. So to do that, we're going to come back in here, and we actually have to bring in the router. So if we go into the module, the routing, we can bring in our router from router. Well, I guess I could have just wrote it out, but basically we want to have just router here. So this in particular, we're going to add it in our constructor, and I'll say private router is router. And then now down here, I'll say this.router, and then we'll do navigate to where we want it to go. So in this case, I just said one thing here as an array, and the first item is going to be a list, and we'll just do // and videos. I'm going to get rid of these. Save that. Refresh in here and click on it, and there it goes. It goes directly to videos. There's no real click event or anything like that. So it's actually working just fine as far as the navigation is concerned. So this allows me to do that sort of routing that I might want. So I could basically still do those same attributes or prevent default. This is just preventing anything from happening, and this is routing. This kind of takes place of window dot location, if you're familiar with that one. I don't believe that works, so let's leave that out. But this at least for sure has the router going where it needs to go based off of something inside of your code. Okay, so if you have any questions on what we did here, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.